I now recognize the gentlewoman from New Mexico, Ms. Deb Haaland, for questions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you all so much for being here today, and thank you, Mr. Shafir, for your strength, courage, and sacrifice. I'd like to first make mention and honor the man who worked tirelessly until his death to fight hate and who advocated feverishly to move the UN Genocide Convention forward, and he also coined the word genocide, and that's Mr. Raphael Lemkin. I think he would be proud of every single one of you for carrying on his legacy, so thank you for that. In its 2018 report, the FBI found that the number of victims of anti-Latino or Hispanic hate crimes increased by 21% over the previous year. In my home state of New Mexico, hate crimes have increased over 400%, and that includes recently the shooting death and beating deaths of homeless Native Americans in the city of Albuquerque. On August 3rd, 2019, a gunman entered a Walmart in El Paso, Texas, and shot and killed 22 people while also wounding 27. Minutes before the rampage, the shooter posted an anti-immigrant manifesto warning about the, quote, Hispanic invasion of Texas, and vowed to shoot, quote, as many Mexicans as possible. Among those was Angie Englishby. She was murdered that day. She was 84 years old, a New Mexican, the oldest of 10 siblings. She had 7 children, 21 grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. Children have lost their parents, parents have lost their children, and yet we can't figure out how to stop reliving this nightmare. No one should have to live it, especially not our immigrant communities, the communities that enrich our country by bringing their cultures here and sharing them with all of us. Hate has been weaponized against so many communities, my own community, the Hispanic, Muslim, and immigrant communities. So my first question is for you, Mr. Greenblatt. In your view, what might be driving the increase of anti-immigrant or anti-Latino sentiment?
Congresswoman, I'm really grateful you asked this question because it allows me to say something I didn't have the opportunity to say before. Hate crimes are vastly underreported. Sometimes this comes from the fact that the people in the communities don't know to report their experiences as hate crimes. Sometimes it comes from the fact that law enforcement isn't trained. But I am deeply concerned about the Latino and the immigrant communities who we know are afraid to report these incidents. I know this because I have heard this from immigrants and Latinos. And the ADL developed a partnership with the government of Mexico. We've provided hate crimes training to over 2,000 Mexican consular officials across the United States, over 2,000, because Mexican nationals living here in the U.S., they are literally going to their consulates to say, my child's being bullied at school, my business was vandalized, because they're afraid to go to the police because of the rumors of ICE enforcement. It is unthinkable that people living here legally are afraid of the authorities. So why is this happening? The anti-immigrant movement in the United States has been empowered in ways we have never seen before. You have the kind of hateful rhetoric coming from people in positions of authority, starting with the White House, demonizing immigrants, dehumanizing Latinos and people seeking refuge in this country in ways that I think are unconscionable. ADL has done reporting on this. I would point you to our report on the anti-immigrant movement in the United States. We need people in positions of authority to use that authority wisely and recognize that this country needs to be welcoming of everyone, particularly those vulnerable people seeking refuge in our shores. Frankly, that's why this country was founded, and that's why we need to live up to those values today.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that. I will go to Dr. Friedberg. During the Holocaust, many countries, including the United States, erected barriers to make it nearly impossible for Jewish people to immigrate. Is that correct?
Not exactly. Thank you for the question. In fact, they didn't need to erect barriers during the Holocaust because the barriers were already in place. Immigration laws that were passed in this body in 1924 severely restricted immigration based on country of origin. And one fact that is very important to know is the United States did not have any refugee policy. I'm going to repeat that. There was no refugee policy in the United States during the period of the Holocaust. So it's not that it wasn't enforced. We simply did not treat people who were fleeing from violence or persecution in any way different than we would treat an economic immigrant or someone coming for family reunification. So it just was not a priority of the United States government at that time.
Thank you so much. I have one more. I have a few. I think I'm out of time. I yield, Madam Chair. Thank you.
The gentlelady's time has expired.